title for my documentary is the SAT a good test to decide if you should be accepted into a college or not? And it's basically going to be about a bunch of teachers or students discussing their past experiences with the SAT, if they think that it's a good test to help with college, or their opinions on it and their just thoughts on the SAT. I chose this topic because I know that it's a very hard test to take and it's a very stressful time for a lot of people, and I feel that although colleges require it, it doesn't really determine if you are right for a college, and it doesn't really show your capabilities and abilities in education or what you want to pursue in your career. Some challenges were basically finding people to interview, also maybe making sure like audio would work depending on what I was using to film these interviews. Some rewarding things would be editing the video and seeing like how it all connected, and seeing how these people answer the questions and their opinions, and seeing how similar they are, but there are also some different ones, and it was really fulfilling to see something that a lot of people go through and they all have their different answers for that. I want people to take away that not all adults or higher people believe that the SAT is like a good test. There are a lot of people who think that it just doesn't really prove anything, and that it's just something that people have to stress over and add more onto their life than they already have to. Like, the application's already a very stressful time, completing it in time and applying to so many colleges can be really stressful. So then when you have the added SAT and you see like a college requires a specific score and you don't get there, it can bring a lot of, you can be very upset, you can be angry, you could be you can be confused as to why like they require this specific score. But I think that if people see that everybody feels this way, they may feel more comfortable about it.
I have not taken the SATs yet, but it makes me very mad because the whole test is just irritating. You gotta like flip through pages, you gotta sit there for hours, can't talk, can't eat. It's just irritating.
I took the SAT. After taking the PSAT, my parents got me a tutor, and then he helped me a lot with the SAT, so I took it twice, once in March without any prep, and then I had some prep with my tutor. And I took it again in May, and my score improved enough that I was happy with it.
I took the SAT. I wouldn't say I like it, but I think it definitely has a purpose because it's been around for so long, and I think there's a reason why some people get 1600s and some get 1200s. But so I don't know, you can't use just that to define someone as a student. So I think the SAT in conjunction with grades and extracurriculars, it helps with schools finding who's best fit for what's college.
I did not like it. It's too long, and it takes it's a full day, and you can't really do anything else afterwards.
I took the ACT. I preferred it over the SAT, I think because it had, if I remember, it asked you more questions, and you had to work quicker, but you didn't have to know as much or go in depth into the actual questions, and that suited me a bit better, I think. I had to get used to the actual test and study more, I think, because it was a new format, but in the end, I think it was best for me.
My experience was really good. Yeah, it was fun. I enjoy writing a lot, so the writing section was really fun for me, and the math part was good too. And I understood it a lot because we prepared for it a lot in class.
My documentary is called The Survivors, and I chose it because when I heard this story originally, it seemed like just an amazing story that I wanted other people to hear. It's how a group of Israeli soldiers, when the Syrians attacked Israel on Yom Kippur, they got kind of herded into a bunker, and it's kind of about how they survived the time that they were in there in the midst of a Syrian attack. The big challenges were finding people to interview because I didn't know a lot about the topic before, and I really only had one connection to the story, and so he was really the only person I got to interview. But what I got from him was a really good story that I'm using in my documentary. I mean, I think I want to make someone feel like the emotions that I felt when I heard the story, just what these people had to go through, and also how the Israeli army has a couple things that they do that the U.S. Army doesn't do, like the soldiers have the choice to disobey their commander if they think it's the right thing to do, and that kind of saves someone's life, and kind of taking that message of you don't always have to do what you're told if you're doing what you think is right.
At 2 p.m., October 6, 1973, the Syrians attacked. In front of that hill, with 6 soldiers and 3 tanks, is a whole Syrian division. The soldiers who fought and had to go to the bunker afterwards basically saved the Golan Heights. Happened in the south of the Golan, in a place called Teksaki. It's a little mountain in the south of the Golan, in which a small team of paratroopers, 6 paratroopers, had a lookout mission to look into Syria. It's on the Syrian border, less than a mile away from the border. They were supposed to warn if they were to wake out if someone's coming. And just a mile away from them, there were 3 tanks. What happens, to make a long story short, is that at 2 p.m., October 6, 1973, the Syrians attacked. In front of that hill, with 6 soldiers and 3 tanks, is a whole Syrian division, which is thousands of soldiers, 130 armed vehicles, crazy ratios. And these soldiers are able to hold on for the first 6 hours. Not one Syrian gets past the border. They destroyed dozens of Syrian tanks. And at night, they ran out of ammunition. The Syrians had, in advance, there were more troops, they had better night vision. And all along the night, basically, it turns into a rescue battle, where the IDF is trying to send different troops to rescue, either reinforce these soldiers or rescue them, pull them out.
My topic is NHSN and the people who are behind it and how it's made. I chose it because I joined NHSN this year, and I was really excited to do so because previous years I wasn't really too happy about how it went. So when I joined, I decided to, make it as good as I can. And I realized that a lot of hard work, and there's a really long process that goes into making a single episode of NHSN. So I wanted to document it and to show people what really happens. Well, some of the challenges are, there's not, the process is very repetitive. We do pretty much the exact same thing over and over and over again. So getting B-roll was kind of a tedious process. But at the same time, it's rewarding to see the people whose work goes unsung. It's they get this. I want people to realize that something as bland as a high school news program can be very exciting to some people, and the amount of work that goes into it is surprising. I want to show that the surprising amount of work goes into a single, seemingly bland project, and it's actually a lot of fun to do.
Massachusetts, there is a high school. In this high school, a news broadcast takes place every Tuesday and Thursday. An elite group films it on Monday and Wednesday. Many jobs are included, and it's taken very, very seriously. Many people don't know the process that happens before a news broadcast is aired. The people, the men and women who work day and night to fight for it. to create it and to make it last, that come up with the amazing ideas shown every Tuesday and Thursday. These are their faces. These are their stories. This is NHS Student News.
The name of our documentary is Ultra Sad, and it's about how childhood has changed throughout the years.
We chose this topic because a lot of kids kind of say how their childhood is different, and then adults will say, well, mine was worse, and then there's like kind of this argument that always happens.
There's controversy. Specific to our class, the challenges was we didn't have a lot of time to do this documentary, as some other classes might have more time, and it was a little hard to find interviews, but we got there, and I think that, like, what else? I think that's it.
Yeah, also like kind of figuring out what we want it to be about. Like, we didn't know what we wanted it to be about, but it was rewarding because now that, well, it's not finished yet, but now that everything's coming together, it's like satisfying to see how all the little things like the keys and the interviews and even the B-roll that we took just come together.
And also it's just like interesting. Like, I think, in my opinion, our topic's pretty interesting to like learn about, so interviewing like these like professionals about it really sparked an interest in me.
I think I just want people to kind of see both perspectives, because a lot of people are stubborn and they just want to say or believe what they think is right, but this way they can see different perspectives from all different ages and really see what other people think about the topic.
And also just like help adults understand maybe a little more of like what childhood is like now and how it's different, so that they can be a little more understanding towards kids today. In August of 2019, author Kim Brooks penned the article, "We've Ruined Childhood." The article is a look into Brooks's take on how the problems with children's mental and emotional health are caused not by any single change in kids' environment, but by a fundamental shift in the way we view children and child rearing, and the way this shift has transformed our schools, our neighborhoods, and our relationship to one another in our communities. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll take a deeper look into how childhood has changed over the years. Is it for the best, or is it ultra sad? Many children and adults argue over who had it worse. While some adults point out their lack of emotional and financial support during their childhood, teens argue the increase in school pressures and the misuse of technology. While neither may have been better off, it is important to look at both perspectives to get a better understanding of each side.
In our generation, we weren't necessarily as protected. I think that there were some real-world difficulties that were happening that people experience.
It feels like there's a lot more support, and so that's one. The other piece is that, you know, all teachers who come in, particularly Needham High School, but other schools, get a lot of training on mental health issues, you know, how to recognize it, how to value students' efforts to take care of themselves. Whereas when I was growing up, teachers didn't recognize that at all and really saw students who were struggling as, you know, either lazy or, you know, they didn't care.
And I'm the creator of The Stress of Learning, which is a documentary exploring student stress levels and the overall high school environment. I decided to create this documentary because you're supposed to tell the stories that you know, and the main place that I work and interact with people is high school, and I wanted to share my opinions about it and my hopes for what it could be, and a lot of the challenges that both students and teachers can face. Probably the biggest challenge that came with making this was just the time, because I had to still continue to be a full-time student and participate in a couple clubs, and I was working with a couple teams at the same time, so it was kind of balancing all of that time while wanting to still create this project. And also, probably the other biggest challenge was just deciding which story I wanted to tell, because there were so many different areas that I wanted to go into and things that I wanted to talk more about, and kind of condensing it down and saying, okay, these are the main questions that I want to talk about, these are the main things that I want to get through, and kind of figuring out how to connect all of those. And because I worked through that challenge so much, the biggest reward has been the positive feedback from the greater Needham High community. I've had teachers reaching out to me and students thanking me for kind of taking this first step and starting the conversation, and it's been really cool to see all of that happening, and the feedback coming from that has been really cool as well. What do I want people to walk away with? I think the biggest thing that I want people to walk away with is just an understanding that high school is complicated. It's a really complicated place. There's a lot of things that happen, a lot of kind of pressures that go unspoken about, and kind of just going around, when you're in school, hopefully we get to go back soon, and you're kind of going through class, sitting with your peers, just understand that there's more to people than just a student, or more to just the person sitting at the front of the classroom than just a teacher, and kind of keeping that in mind when they're there, because we all have to be there, we all have to go to school and spend time there, so we might as well take have a better mindset when we're in the building. That's the main thing I wanted people to walk away with, was just an understanding that it sounds a little bit cliche, but we're all in this together, we're all stuck in the building together, so we might as well try to enjoy ourselves and enjoy spending time with others. Probably the biggest thing that surprised me were all the things that people had in common. There was a lot more common ground and common challenges between, administrators and teachers and even students. And there were a lot of common themes across each other and problems that we all kind of faced together. And that wasn't something that I really saw before, and I think it was clear before to students. And I think that, because I was so surprised by that, I wanted to kind of share that as much as I could and say that, there is common ground between all of us, and we should start there before we can really move forward. That was one of the most surprising things. And also just, how receptive the school has been. I never would have thought that I could reach out to the principal and he would say yes, and then reach out to the superintendent and he would say yes, and then reach out to the couple of the assistant principals and they would say yes. And it was really surprising to see how much the school would appreciate and support a project like this. That was the most surprising thing.